Just a little story, something that happened to me when I was 15 years old, or 16. I think I was about 16 years old. I started work with my dad at the building in 1981 when I was 15. I got thrown out of school because I was disruly student, probably disruly because I was kind of ADHD, dyslexic type person, so I didn't really fit into that environment very well, so I wasn't really very well liked by the teachers. But that's a total story for another day. I started work with my dad when I was 15, and we built one house, I remember, from beginning to end. That was my first experience. They were the Bungalow Bliss bungalows that we worked on. That's time when Bungalow Bliss was the book that you could buy, was full of plans, and you could buy the plans then off of Bungalow Bliss with the technical information and all. And still all over Ireland today you will see thousands, maybe millions of Bungalow Bliss bungalows. They were very compact, efficient and cheap house to build, and have reared many thousands of families throughout the country. I have heard them criticised by people who see themselves as architects and such, saying they're a blight on the face of Ireland, but as far as I'm concerned, the Bungalow Bliss bungalows were an absolute lifesaver for people who hadn't got much money at the time. The 80s in Ireland was a bad economic time. Like we were talking about during Garret Fitzgerald, Charlie Haughey era. So it was a bleak time in Ireland, and for people to be able to afford to build houses that time it was something brilliant. Otherwise people had no options. So myself and my father, we were working that time. I went to work with him when I was 15, and I started immediately into the Bungalow Bliss bungalows. We worked locally. It would have been local farmers that we worked for. Essentially people who hadn't got a lot really, but it would have been local farmers that we worked for. It would have taken us approximately 3 to 4 months. There was 3 of us, myself, my father and another gentleman who worked with us. The 3 of us, from beginning to end, from the day that the ground was broken to the day that the house was pretty much ready to move into. Now we didn't do painting or pats or any of that, or kitchens, but we left the house finished. It would have taken about 3-4 months to do that for 3 men. We had no machinery. We had hand tools. We had no machinery of any kind, and we were able to do the job just the same as the people now were able to do it with very expensive machinery. But we were able to do it, and we were able to do it by hand, and we were able to do it just as quick. Which you explain to anybody now, and they look at you like you have 2 heads. But we were able to do it. There was no issue with it. Now we were all young and very fit, and there was a lot of physical effort. It was a 6-day-a-week job. You started at 8 in the morning, you finished at 6 at night. So it was a fairly hard job. There wasn't much pay to be got from it. But like it was better than emigrating or going to London to work, which a lot of guys went to London to work and everything, and or worked for the farmers on the land, like, I mean, seasonal work and things. But it was far better than that. Like, I was very lucky. My dad was a very skilled man, and he had that business going when I left school. Well, when they threw me out of school. But the second building that I worked on was in a place called Coolishnock, the Valley of the Snow. And the first day that we were there, the foundation, well, it wasn't the first day, the foundation was dug out, and it was the day that we were putting into concrete for the foundation. So that would have been the first concrete pour in there. We went up there and we were there for 8 o'clock in the morning. We drove the pegs into the ground and had everything ready for the levels of the concrete. There was the 3 of us there with shovels and rakes ready to level the concrete. And the first load of concrete came, it would have come from Carlow, from a group called Dan Morrissey in Carlow. At the time he had Ford trucks at the time drawing the concrete. Now there were 3 axle trucks at the time probably pulling about 30 tons, so you know it wouldn't be allowed nowadays. And I remember just as the first guy arrived on the site, the rain started pouring. Now I can't remember exactly what time of year it was. I have a feeling it was late in the autumn, but the rain started pouring down, and there was a little lane up to the house that we were building. So of course, that had been done before. There'd been filling and hardcore put in, and it had been rolled down before. So that would have been done before. Now he was the first heavy vehicle to drive on it. And the rain started pouring from the sky. And as he drove up along towards the house, the truck started skidding. It started spinning and slipped off the road out to the side. So there it was, 30 ton of concrete off the road, out to the side. Now it was, I think we had 3 trucks of concrete ordered, and shortly after the second truck arrived. And the idea then was, he said he'd pull the other guy back and get him back onto the road so he could deliver the concrete and get in, because of course he was blocking the area, nobody could get in. The other 2 trucks couldn't get in. So a chain was organised. He came up, he tried to pull the other truck back, and when he tried to pull the other truck back, he damaged his own truck. What happened was a half shaft broke, which the Fords were famous for. A half shaft broke in the Ford truck. So now we had 2 trucks disabled, full of concrete on the path. And then of course the 3rd truck arrived at the gate, and there we were, and it was absolutely spilling rain completely. And after much talk, there was a man with a digger up the road, and it was decided that he was going to come and he was going to try and help. And in the meantime then he arrived, and the mechanics then from Dan Morrissey arrived, and they were trying to fix the second truck by putting a half shaft into it, as that was stranded, and the guy with the digger was trying to dig a track to get the first truck out. Now keep in mind, it was spilling and it was cold. I hadn't a lot of sense at that time, so I was wearing a light jacket. That's as much sense as I had at 16-year-old. And it was absolutely spilling. I remember standing under the back of the truck where there was no shelter, because there was no shelter. We were essentially on the side of the mountain. And I remember standing under the back of the truck and the water really running down the back of my neck. And after much ado, the second truck was fixed. He was pulled out by the digger. The first truck was kind of dug out and pulled out, and then we had to pull the first truck up. Now by this time it was we started at about 8 in the morning, it was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the day. And there wasn't one bit of concrete in the foundation at this point. So the first truck had to be drawn in, and we had to get somebody with a tractor and a digger, and then of course the ground was getting torn up. And in the end, the digger, I think, had to transport the concrete into the foundation because the trucks couldn't get in. And basically, it was freezing, it was wet, there was the three of us there, and we started at 8 that morning with the 3 trucks. And by the time we got the concrete in and levelled it, I think it was about 8 o'clock that night, and we finished the concrete with a guy shining the lights of the tractor on to the concrete so that we could get it finished, and it never stopped raining that day. When I got back into the van to go home, I sat on the seat and a puddle formed under me. My hands were blue. I was covered from head to foot in mud and concrete. And I went home and I lay on the floor in my wet clothes and I fell asleep. Now, I was maybe 15, 16 year old. That was the kind of work we did. Now, every day wasn't as disastrous as that one, but that's what was expected of you. So I'm going back to the 80s, to a different time, a different people. It was a moment in time that couldn't be understood really by people now. Just couldn't be understood. Just a complete moment in time. Thanks for listening.